Okay, I think we can start. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining another workshop provided by Accelirate and UiPath. My name is Hossein Ziayan, RPA Senior Architect, and with me, Vinit Kugini, RPA Tech Lead, and Brad Beumer, Call Center Automation Expert from UiPath. In this workshop, we share our experience in implementing call center automation using UiPath Automated Bot. Please feel free to post your question to the meeting chat. We will address the question at the end. Brad, could you please kick off this workshop by introducing yourself?
All right, will do. Thanks for having me on the call today. As was mentioned within UiPath, I focus on call center, customer service, and other areas, but really what that means is I work with our clients and customers every day to help understand how hyperautomation and RPA fit within their customer service journeys. We wanted to start off by talking a little bit about how we see what our vision is for the overall customer service journey within most of the clients that we work with every day. And that really starts off with self-service. So how do you when you look at metrics that you want to optimize, how do you keep calls from coming into your contact center or call center, also sometimes called call deflection? And that starts with self-service. And I think a lot of times what I hear is that clients are often interested in hearing and learning that UiPath and automation has a role to play in helping optimize things like chatbots, IVR voice bots, web self-service sites, mobile applications, and others. And the way we do that is through using unattended robots. Those unattended robots can help free up the data, help free up processes so that these chatbots, IVR bots, and other self-service websites and mobile apps, et cetera, can actually do straight through processing, right, and help meet that objective around being able to fulfill those requests. Next up is around the agent. So knowing that we're not always going to be able to do straight through processing, do everything within a chatbot, et cetera, you need to be able to transfer seamlessly and smoothly over to an agent. And this is where we actually have some new capabilities. We have capabilities today in our attended space that allow you to easily create forms and robots on your agent desktops, but we have new capabilities that are coming out in a low-code, no-code tool that will allow us to present and prepare these rich agent consoles that provide data from all different systems and real-time feeds from AI and next best action and other capabilities there too, to really be able to provide that 360-degree view of the customer so that the agent can better serve them. And then finally, the last part of the journey is around how do we improve the work that happens, that interaction that happens between the front office, between the agent, that's customer facing, and the back office that might be doing things like order fulfillment, shipping, processing invoices, et cetera. One other aspect of this is that we tend to find with most of our customers is that 20% of a call's average handle time, so 20% of the time that the agent is on the phone or actually handling a customer's request, is spent with work that actually happens after the call, after call work, call notation, et cetera. We find that we can automate a lot of that using attended automation, AI, and other capabilities that we include within our agent console and automation in general. The last part here, and I think probably a very important part of the customer service journey, is how do you do this rapidly, efficiently? And what's often important for many contact centers is how do you do it without making changes to the existing technology stack? And that's where really the overall UiPath hyperautomation suite comes into play. How do we use tools like task capture to help identify as-is processes, provide those to an RPA COE or an RPA team without having to take time away from the contact center, those contact center agents, but also give the COE a lot of information to help them build those out inside of UiPath Studio, and then ultimately deploy and get your insights from Orchestrator and our reporting tools. So that's a high-level view of the overall customer service journey, or how we see automation playing within the contact center. Who's doing this? So we went back and looked over the past 2 years and just looked at what's the breakdown of our customers that are using UiPath in the contact center. You can see there's a pretty even distribution around the globe But then probably not surprisingly, within industries, banking and insurance and telecom tend to have the most agents or tend to have the largest contact centers. So not surprisingly, they tend to make up most of our customers. But you can also see that we also have quite a few customers in other areas. And I will say in the post or in this world with COVID and the current situation we find ourselves in, some of those industries like public sector, utilities, and travel and leisure are oftentimes, I think you'll see those bars come up as they're more focused on how they improve the customer experience, how do they make the experience more efficient and provide a better return on the investment for some of those technologies that they may have in place today. Also along the same lines of looking at where our customers are today over the past 2 years, we were able to pull some metrics to see what are the benefits, what are our customers actually experiencing in terms of benefits in their contact center deployments, and using UiPath in their contact center. Two that you'll see there that are 10%, one, the 10% increase in customer satisfaction, and the other 10% increase in first call or first contact resolution rates. Those may seem low, but that's actually quite significant when you think about where customer satisfaction is for most organizations and also where first call resolution rates are. The two that really drive a business case or drive ROI that are measurable and more easy to measure would be reduction in AHT or average handle time. And then the second one would be decreasing training and onboarding costs. Decreasing and training and onboarding costs is one that especially has been very important over the past few months as employees, call center agents are working more from home. How do you help reduce that training and onboarding, especially for folks that may be coming in and taking calls that were in other parts of the business or in other parts of the organization? And automation helps with that, but also some of the tools we have. I mentioned task capture earlier, just being able to create updated documentation that you can send out to your agents is oftentimes important there as well. I mentioned in the previous, or a couple of the previous slides, the time, the ability to be able to deploy our solutions quite quickly and rapidly and without needing to do it, make changes. But on average, we see about 8 to 12 weeks for an initial implementation. So if we look at the types of automation that we see in the contact center, I think the important part here, the key takeaway here is really that there isn't any one. And this is, I think a unique differentiator for UiPath is that it's a combination of attended and unattended. And that seamless handoff between the two is important. So if you remember back to the customer service journey slide, most of what happens in self-service, most of the automation in self-service is unattended. But when you need to make that transition over to an agent, and we want to try to fulfill those in self-service, but if we need to transfer over to an agent, that needs to be a seamless handoff between an unattended robot and an attended robot. That's one of the advantages that we have is that seamless transition, both from an execution perspective or a runtime perspective, but also when it comes to actually building these robots out in our development tools. But that could also be handoff from an attended bot to an unattended bot when it comes to that front office to back office integration that was also a key part of that customer service journey. The last part here, and I'll just quickly highlight this, is just around attendance. So we spent a lot of time talking about the service journey. We talked a little bit about unattended and attended, but in the contact center, I think what tends to come to light or what tends to come up more often is how does attended play in the contact center. And these are around just being able to create simple automations for starting the day. So helping an agent get logged into all their applications, starting a call. So how do you do things like provide a screen pop into applications that today may not get a screen pop? So screen pop is simply pre-populating information into an application when the customer first calls in. There are several use cases that exist between those two, but the last one that I often like to highlight is around the after call work. So how do we help agents not have to spend as much time sending follow-up emails to supervisors, maybe to the customers, maybe escalation emails? How do we help with automatically capturing notes and entering those notes? So that's using a little bit of AI, where our attended bots are or partnered with AI to capture speech, converting it to text, and then summarizing it, and then putting it into a note. But a lot of opportunities there around how we use attended bots with other parts of the automation ecosystem to really help drive ROI within the contact center, efficiencies within the contact center. So I hope that helps tee things up. And I know the Accelirate team is going to talk more about a specific customer and use cases that they've implemented. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you so much, Brad. That was really helpful. So we would like to share a small business use case that we have recently executed for one of our major financial clients. And just to give you a brief idea about the problem statement, our client had around 4 call centers within the US region, and they were based out of Florida, Arizona, Connecticut, and they also had a small virtual team based out of New York. Overall, they had about 400 customer service associates. We call them as CSAs. They're working for 2 groups, specifically full service and record keeping. So all these call centers together received around 3.2 million calls every single year. And 30% of these total calls, which is about 940K calls, were specific to a process named money out. I'll talk more details about the money out process in the next few slides. But before that, if you look at the average handling time for each one of these money out calls, it used to vary anywhere between 7 minutes 40 seconds through 11 minutes 30 seconds. Moving on. So there could be several reasons why a customer would reach out to the call center associates, right? So a few of the top reasons were specific to 401k account transfers, and a few others called them about address changes, and a few of those reached out to the CSAs for balance checks, and a few others called about claims and account closures as well. So our money out process related calls used to be just for 2 core reasons. So if you look at the last component, that's loans and withdrawals. So the customer calls the CSA for when they wanted to withdraw some money from his or her 401k account. And the second reason would be when the customer wanted to apply for a 401k loan. So it can be for several reasons. For example, if I have a medical emergency, or if I have a house loan, or if I have a surgery, or if it's because of a natural calamity, I would like to withdraw some money from my 401k account. So moving into the engagement, our major goals for the automation were to improve the information accuracy. That was our highest priority. And eliminating the repeat callers for all CSAs was our second priority. And the last priority that we had was to reduce the average handling time for each call. Moving on.
Thank you very much, Vineet. So call center automation design is very straightforward. Customer call the agency, and the agent authenticate the customer, identify customer need, and verify customer request for money out. From this point forward, agent trigger digital assistance, which is go to the different UI application, cloud platform, and combine the money out information into comprehensive user-friendly workbook. Also, validate all the internal customer-specific information generated through predefined highly complex business rule. In the case that there is a data discrepancy, it will notify the agent. So agent will review the result with the customer, and with the customer approval, move forward. The unique challenge for the automation, call center automation, is installing application more than 500 machine, and also train the agents. It needs extensive planning and scheduling. In this slide, we visualize the before and after automation. So as you see, the customer call and the agent verify the customer and get the key information to access all the record that we have in the system. From this point moving forward, it takes about 2 to 8 minutes. Customer actually, it's on hold until agent go to the different system and verify the balance loan and consolidate all the information to the simple spreadsheet that shows the status. If you compare it with the automation, after the second step that we identify the customer, actually agent engage with the customer and talking, while the bot is going and get all the information, running all the business logic and consolidate data for the decision. And this takes about 1 to 3 minutes. So here we show of the running attended bot minute.
Sure. So we wanted to share a small demo of how an attended bot performs live in action on the user machine. So if you look at the small window, which is called the UiPath robot, that's the attended bot that is installed on the user machine. So the CSA would directly click on the play button, and that itself triggers the bot. So the screen that you see on your left is a web-based application, which is client-specific, and it hosts the entire client information. For example, it has a social, it has the vendor balance, it has the existing balance, and it also has the date of birth of the customer. So it scrapes the entire information from the left screen first. And once that is completely done and validated, the bot would move on to the screen on your right. That's a Salesforce cloud application. And this application hosts the entire customer's plan information. So for example, each customer can enroll in multiple plans as well. So they might have single or multiple or more than 2 as well. So once the entire scraping is done on both the screens, the bot collates the information and put together a dashboard, which has the entire customer information, including the minimum payments that is required by the customer. It has the pre-tax information. It has the post-tax information as well. In addition to these 2 applications that you see on your screen, there's a mainframe application that runs in the background, and we also have a few Excel calculators that are being leveraged in the backend. Now, the information that you see on your screen is the dashboard, which hosts the entire customer information. Right now, the data is completely empty because it has a lot of client confidential information. So unfortunately, we couldn't present that. So this is the beautiful dashboard which the bot generates at the end of the automation. Perfect. Moving on, we wanted to share a few impact metrics out of this engagement. So if you look at the ROI figure for this automation, it was close to around $400,000. And we were also able to save the full-time effort of each employee for about 2 hours per day. And the average handling time was completely reduced from about 11 minutes to about 30 to 60 seconds, depending on the number of loans the customer has. We were able to complete the entire code development in about 6 sprints. We opted for agile methodology, which is equivalent to around 12 weeks of time frame. So we were able to install the attended bot on about 500 to 600 user desktops within a period of 4 weeks. And we also had 4 weeks of time frame for end user training, and we included about 4 weeks of hypercare period. We were able to completely eliminate the repeat callers out of this engagement, and the average handling time was completely reduced to 60 seconds. And the CSAs, including the customers, were completely happy about the information accuracy that's being generated by the attended bot. We'd be happy to take forward your questions.
All right, so there's a couple questions coming in right now. The first one is, what was the toughest phase of this engagement?
Thank you for asking. In retrospect, I would definitely say user training was one of the toughest phase, as it involved a lot of planning. There were a good number of monitoring activities that we were supposed to execute. And we also had a lot of execution procedures, and coordinating 380 to 400 user schedules was never easy for us. So it involved a lot of planning from our end, and we have to ensure that we do not impact their end-to-end day-to-day schedule, taking the customer calls from their end. So I would say user training is one of the toughest phases for us.
All right, perfect. The next one can be for everyone, but specifically it's for Brad. They're wondering, what should companies look out for most when automating their call center? So I guess what is like a misstep that you see a lot that we should watch out for? Brad, are you still with us? Okay, maybe Hussein or Vineeth, do you guys want to tackle that question?
Vineeth, you want to take it?
Oh, sure. Megan, could you please repeat that question for me, please?
What is the toughest part about automating a call center? So what are the common missteps you see?
Sure. So when we go for agile methodology, the amount of time frame that we code for code development would definitely define the ROI figure that we achieve at the end of the engagement. So we have to complete the code development and implementation faster, so we can completely focus on the user training and hypercare phases where we refine the bot on a day-to-day basis after taking the user feedback on a daily basis. That would drastically impact the ROI. So if you want to achieve a higher ROI, we have to reduce the time frame of code development and the implementation part.
Yeah, and Megan, the one thing that I would add to that is just around the upfront design of the flow for the agent. So what does that automation flow look like? So for example, making sure you're not actually adding steps in. So oftentimes, our goal is obviously to remove keyboard strokes and clicks and steps and so on and so forth. Making sure you're not adding steps in. The other part, somewhat goes along with that first part, is making sure that you're just not adding automation on top of an existing process. Look at the process that's there today. Are there other ways that it could be done? Are there other ways to optimize it other than just automating steps that exist today? So those would be two things that I somewhat see. One is probably a first misstep, and then the other part would be a misstep.
Yep, totally agree with your thought, Brad.
Okay, perfect. Next question. How challenging is it to navigate internal systems and information security privileges?
So we were able to establish infrastructural planning even before we started the code development. So we had multiple teams that were engaged even before we kickstarted the implementation of this project. So as soon as we're completely done with the process design part, we engaged several teams from IT, security, and operations. So we were able to coordinate with each one of these teams and get the required access. And in addition to that, we also established a few audit practices. So it was easy for us from a maintenance perspective.
And I think the other part, so we talked about attended automation, is that from a security perspective, those attended robots are running under the credentials of the logged in user. So the user logged into the Windows desktop. So that security and permissions is inherited, or the attended robot basically inherits those same securities and security and permission rules that the user has, not just to Windows, but also to the applications that they're logging into.
All right, next question. What is the best place to start when automating a call center? Did you guys start with one call center, or did you automate for multiple at a time?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say in general, and then Vineet, if you want to add in what you did for your customer reference. I will say in general, a lot of times I see pilots within an individual contact center. Not always, but just in general, you'll pick out maybe one contact center or a group within a contact center to initially deploy and receive a set of the first use cases. Various reasons for that. One reason is because there's often concern about the amount of change that automation is going to have in the contact center, but most of the time, once organizations see what's actually happening and how it works, it helps alleviate some of that fear or concern that's there around automation. Then Vineet, did you want to add anything related to your customer experience?
So specific to engagement, we handpicked 3 processes as part of pilot, and out of which we locked down one final process based on the impact that we see at a larger group. So the process that was picked had an impact on 400 users, while the first 2 were specific to offices. So we went for the third one because the impact was really, really higher, and it really made a difference for 400 CSAs.
All right, next question. Is there a difference between automating mid-size and large call centers? So as opposed to a large enterprise versus a smaller organization?
Yeah, I would say the use cases tend to be, especially for the start of the call and the end of the call, tend to be fairly similar. And then the use cases by industry, what happens between the start and end, tend to be similar by industry, regardless of size. I would say the biggest impact on size is the business case or the ROI that's achievable. more agents tend to make for a better business case, tend to give you a higher ROI, as to where fewer agents, it may be more difficult to calculate and prove that benefit that's going to be there. The one thing that tends to change that a little bit is if you're using automation in the self-service category together with the assisted or agent contact center category, and that tends to change the ROI metrics a bit as well. But you know, I would say probably the biggest impact is just around how you calculate and view the benefits that you're going to get. Larger call centers going to have that ROI calculation is going to be larger. Smaller call centers, it's going to be a little bit smaller, lighter.
All right, looks like we have another one. How can bots make disparate systems talk to each other?
Yeah, you want me to take that one, Vineeth, or do you want to start?
Sure. So as soon as the CSA triggers the bot, it would interact based on the selectors, and it would interact with each application and captures the information from all screens, be it Salesforce Cloud or be it mainframe or be it Excel application. So we perform a set of validation steps, whether that the bot is able to capture all these three screens first, and only after all the validation steps are successful, then it would start scraping the information from these three screens. So everything is based out of web selectors, and it depends on the application type as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, I'm sometimes careful about saying this because I don't want to mislead folks, but I oftentimes like to think about visually when I think about how attended automation works on a desktop for a contact center agent. It's almost like an integration bus or a service bus where the RPA is playing the role of the bus, and it's allowing these messages to be exchanged between all the different applications to where they couldn't do that before. So RPA plays that role of the glue. You can almost think of it also as like the glue between the telephone systems, between the CRM system, between maybe the workforce management system as well, and other applications that may not talk today. So you can think of it as a bus, or maybe if you want to think of it a different way, as the glue that helps bring them all together.
Okay, awesome. And we have one more question, looks like. Does the bot need to be trained to grow more precise over time? And if so, how long does training take?
Sure. That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. So Hypercare phase was specifically designed for this purpose. Yes, so we trained the bot for about 30 days, and it again depends on each business case. But for this engagement, we leveraged the Hypercare for 30 days. So what we did during this period was our entire team traveled to each and every call center across 4 locations. And we used to sit with each and every CSA, take the user feedback on one-on-one basis. And we also monitored all the customer calls every single day. So if you look at the call volume, on a busy day, it used to be anywhere between 100 to 150. And on a normal day, during a normal season, it was around 70 to 100 calls. So we used to listen to the customer calls, understand the reasons why they're calling, and we segregated all good calls and bad calls. And again, the bad calls can be for multiple reasons, right? So it can be because of the customer service associated interaction, or it can be inaccurate information. So we segregated all those calls. We came back and we regrouped as a team, and we understood why the information was inaccurate. And if it is inaccurate, is it because of the bot, or is it because of the background application? So once we filtered all these reasons out, we used to refine the bot every single day and make the required code fixes on the very same day. And we redeployed the packages the next day when we went back to the CSA. So by doing this for a period of 30 days, we were able to refine the bot completely. And at the end of Hypercare phase, there was no other concern from CSAs and also the customers. That's really, really important as part of the implementation. And the beauty of the entire engagement was that for the first time when you sit with the CSA and watch the attended bot performing live in action, that's a beautiful experience for everybody on the team.
Perfect. That was the last question.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.